Well, good morning, everybody. I hope your Wednesday morning is going pretty good so far. We are just moving straight forward in our study through James. This is a Bible study or just a community of people where we believe that you should be rooted in Scripture. That's why we call it Rooted. And we are just going through different topics and different scriptures, trying our best in life just to be rooted in what God and the teachings of Jesus in our life. And so we have been in James for quite a while now, and we're actually coming to the end of that. Just a little background of James. So James is the brother of Jesus, and he spent his entire life listening to his older brother. He has watched most of his adult life viewing other people who followed him. And so his whole life has really been consumed by Jesus. And so it looks like to me that he kind of compiles some of these really important issues and topics that he views in each other's lives and other people's lives and says, look, if you need to follow and be rooted in these things if you want to be successful. And so we're in chapter 5, and we're just going to read this small section because I think there's a lot to it, and I think it will be good for us, especially in the church, to kind of understand and kind of unpack this idea. So we're going to start in verse 1 of chapter 5. We're just going to read 6 verses today. So let me read that to you, and you can follow along as well if you want. It says this: "Now listen, you rich people. Weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth is rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you have failed to pay the workers who mowed your field are crying out against you. The cries of the harvest have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on this earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourself in the day of the slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who has not opposed you." Now, this kind of seems like James is being really harsh to this specific group of people because, all of us probably know somebody who is wealthy, who is rich. According to the world standard, every single person who listens to this podcast or watches this video is a rich person. Even if we live paycheck to paycheck, we can go and get the things that we need. Like, there is not poverty within our life. Like, if we really need something, we can get it. And living in America, that is a huge perk of that. But there is a great deal of people outside of the United States, even people within the United States in some areas, where not being rich or watching people who are rich are very few and far between. So what's wrong with being rich? Or what's the blind spots of being rich? Because we even see in Jesus, he talked about multiple times how being rich was a bad thing, or having pity on the rich, or it is so hard for the rich to receive the kingdom of heaven or go to heaven because they are rich. He said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for the rich to go into heaven. But why is that? Why is that so difficult for us to grasp? And I think it's because we've all lived in a rich-ish culture. Richness and being able to get things and be able to fix things and be able to improve on things is just something that 99% of us have probably dealt with in our life, especially the ones that are listening to this. The reason Jesus wants us to be wary of the rich is because this whole thing that God has been trying to convey and push into our minds ever since the fall is that we need to rely on the strength and the faith of God. And we need to rely on the strength and of grace and the teachings of Jesus. Like there is a reliance off of self onto the Holy One. And God wants us to ingrain that in our mind, that he is the first, middle, and last thing that we are always thinking about. But the rich don't have to worry about those things. The rich do not have to think about God ever to rely on him on this earth. The reason is because we have money to fix things. We have the resources to just move things in the direction that we want to. We have the ability to get from point A to point B. We have all the opportunity in the world to get education. We have all the opportunity in the world to receive healing through medication. We have all the opportunity in the world to advance our business. We have all the opportunity in the world to be fed and to be happy. We have all the opportunity in the world to receive friends and have fellowship and have a great time on this earth. And we can do that within a 5-mile radius, which takes about 15 minutes to consume all of those things. But James, in his culture, there are poor people. They are people that cannot fix things. There are people that have to rely on some other factor in order to live. And the rich don't have to worry about that. I think the reason that Jesus was so harsh on the rich and really talked about how dangerous it is to be rich is because on this earth, there is no room for Jesus in their life, because Jesus will not give them any more freedom from a financial or a security purpose at all. That it doesn't matter if they're being judged by the world. It doesn't matter if there are people that are looking down upon them, because they have all the money in the world and they can just fix it. I remember somebody who was very, very wealthy that was very close to me in my life, who we had conversations about money often. And I think he had a pretty good understanding about money. But he said, money's not everything, but money makes everything easier. And I completely get that. That the more money that you have, the easier of a life that you can have. Because the people that I talk to who are what we would consider poor or struggling in America, their worries are a lot different than the worries of the people who are rich. Like those who don't have very much money, they're worried about something breaking in their house. They're worried about their car breaking down. They're worried about the bill that the gas bill or the electric bill that is very up and down depending on the season. And you just pray that it's not going to be too high so that you can pay the bill. You worry about inflation. You worry about gas prices. You worry about food prices. You worry about the local market that gives out free things. You hope that they have what you need to take care of your family. When you are rich, you don't have, those worries do not happen at all. I can say very few times in my life I've been very blessed in the way that I was growing up and the opportunities that I've had in my life, that I really haven't had that many thoughts along those lines since I became an adult. When I'm a kid, if we had any of those struggles, my parents probably would have guarded me or protected me from those things. But as an adult, when I'm in charge of our finances, I'm in charge of our house, I'm in charge of fixing things. There's been very few times in my life that I've had to worry, like truly worry, about fixing something, about getting from point A to point B, about taking care of my wife when she was ill, or taking care of myself when I was ill. But James, if we shift back, he gives this crazy illustration of a fatted calf. Now, if you picture this with me, so a fatted calf is something that they would use multiple times a year, probably around celebration time. Like you would set aside a couple different calves and you would fatten them up. You would make them a lot bigger so that it would feed more people. In theory, it would taste better. But if you put your shoes in the fatted calf and you just imagine that you are that, and that's all you know, you would think that you are king of the universe. You know, all the food that you want comes to you. You get to eat as much as you want. You get to drink as much as you want. They don't want you to be consumed by disease or worry about anything negative that's coming into your body, because they want you to taste as good as possible. So they're going to take care of you as best as possible. So while that pig is on this earth, they probably think, man, I am Lord. These people love me. They serve me. Anything that I want, they give to me. And they store up so many riches in their life. They store up the food around them. They store up the area around them. And they think, man, this is all mine. This is all about me. But until the day of slaughter, so whenever the farmer comes and they kill the calf to provide a meal for everybody, all of a sudden, all the luxuries and all the riches that they had in their life now have been scattered amongst everybody else, and they have no control over it. That when the rich that store up everything for themselves, they're not generous, they don't help other people, they just try to make that bank account go higher and higher and higher, and they get more and more and more things, and they get the nicest jewelry and the nicest clothes, and things just start piling up more and more and more. On the day that they pass away, their riches all of a sudden get scattered amongst everybody else. That when they become like that fatted cow, when they, on the day of their death, everything just gets scattered. And they're no longer the kings that they thought they were. Because when they pass away, they're no longer in control of the things that they had on this earth. James in here talks about how when we consume everything, when we take everything for ourselves, when we store up everything, he gives an illustration of taking wages away from people. Now, I have never done this before in my life. I've never actually probably met somebody that has done this before. But in this scenario, if you were to take wages away from people, that would mean that they would have nothing else in their life. Like they could not provide for the family. They could not put clothes on their back. They could not pay whatever expenses they had in their life. Like they lived day to day. And if all of the cries in the world towards these people, the rich people, it wouldn't bother them at all because they have all the money. They don't have to worry about those things. They have no empathy for these people. They think that everybody is probably on their standards, and they're like, you know what, just don't worry about it. We're not going to pay you. Just do what I'm doing. Now, I can say that if somebody does not receive wages in the United States, or especially the people that are listening to this, like if you really want to, you can get food. You can be slightly taken care of. It won't be glamorous, it won't be good, but you can scrape away and get something done. But something that we do struggle with in America is there are different economical types of people in this world. There are people in the different, we talk about percentages of people, like who's the top percentage, middle, lower class, how much money, what's the median income, and they try to justify the amount of money that people in America are making. But the hardest thing is the disconnect between the struggles of the lower class and the struggles of the upper class, or even the struggles of the middle class. There's no empathy between the classes. It's just pointing of fingers at all times. And it seems like there's this massive disconnect between those who are really rich and those who are really poor. That the really rich just say, well, just do what I do, and then you'll be where I am. And the people people who are poor are looking at the people who are rich, saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what I'm supposed to take the next step. I don't know how to get out of the situation that I'm in. Instead of the rich just coming to the poor and saying, here, let me take you out of this situation and guide you towards a different life. That would be Christians being generous. I say all the time, I say it on stage, I say it on this podcast. I say, look, Christians are called to be generous people. We are called to be generous, like overly generous. We're called to give and to help people in need and to bring people out of their current situation into better situations. We're supposed to open up our household. We're supposed to give our food. We're supposed to basically become family, that if you need something that I have, it is yours and you can use it. But the problem with this circle of hierarchy in economics is it's just people taking advantage of each other. Like, there's no generosity. It's just what's mine is mine and what yours is mine. And everybody views that of each other. That even now, the poor people, poor in quotes, poor people in the United States have justified themselves saying that I deserve something. And then the rich say the same thing. I deserve something. And we've become this consumer nation, this consumer group of people, that we think we are generous, we think that we are giving, we think that we're loving, but in reality, we look at everybody as an opportunity to take advantage of. That everybody's a stepping stone to our next greatest thing, that these friends probably aren't going to be our good friends in 5 to 10 years because they'll probably be better friends. You know, we're probably not going to be in the same job or the same profession, or we hope to not be in the same house or have the same car. And some people even say, I hope to not have the same spouse. Like, this is just my first marriage. Like, we view everybody as you have something that I want, and whenever I have everything that you have or everything that you can provide, then I no longer need you. And it doesn't matter if you have $1 in your bank account or you have $1 billion in your bank account. This is a mentality of oppression that the rich have. That it doesn't matter how much you have. You can still hoard. You can still, take. See, the thing that was different in the older times was the poor really had an open hand. Like, they were just looking for somebody to just grab a hold of them and help them. Like, they had nothing to take. But it's so much different now, especially in America, that this warning to rich oppressors literally applies to almost everybody in America. I'm not going to, probably 90%, I'm going to say 90% of people in America can have this rich oppressor mentality no matter how much money you have. Yeah, Clay Cobb in here said that it's not just a stepping stone, but a threat. And I think that's a whole nother shift that Jesus talked about multiple times. And James, I wouldn't say, is overly talking about that, because the rich people here would have never viewed the poor people as a threat, because the rich people don't need the poor people. That's why they don't pay them. They're like, if you leave, it's whatever. But in today's society, the oppression becomes, you are in the way of me. You are in the way of me just consuming. And before we know it, we have a whole nation that's basically just a fatted calf. Like we are just consuming and grabbing and getting, and then pretty soon we're all just going to die, and all of our stuff is just going to be scattered, and we're going to have nothing to show for it. I think the reason that Jesus talks so negatively about the rich and warns about the rich is because if you are in a position of poor, and the reliance of Jesus is in the front of your mind at all times. Like, you have to rely on the blessings of Jesus just to get through the day. And that's why, if you see poor countries, they are coming to Jesus in droves because Jesus offers something that their government and their rich people cannot provide. But if you're rich, all the needs in your life you can just pay for. Now, I don't have an overly crazy stance on miracles or healings, but I do believe that they happen. And the reason I think they don't happen in the United States is because we can just buy them. If we're in pain, we just buy the pain away. If we need something to be fixed, like, we just pay for somebody to fix it. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing. Like, I think God provided surgeons and medical people to lead the way to good health and help us live a longer life and fix the injuries that we have, because we live very dangerous lives. Like, I think those are good things, but if you could just pay for everything, where is the reliance on Jesus Christ? Where is the reliance on the great healer? Where's the reliance on the great deliverer from your current stance to the stance that is within God's will? If you have luxury, you don't need that. And this is where I struggle very heavily with the ministers and the preachers of this day that just desire for their people to be rich. Like, if Jesus warns us so many times, and James warns us, and Paul warns us, and the Old Testament warns us about how dangerous it is to be rich, why do we keep preaching to become rich? Why do we keep praying to become rich? Like, if our main goal is to be closer to Jesus and follow the will of Jesus, wouldn't we want to remove all of the crazy things that being rich, adds onto our life? I'm not saying rich is wrong. I know a lot of rich people. I know a lot of rich, faithful, and good people. But I can say that most of those rich people really do struggle with faith and relying on an outside source to provide in their life. And I do know the people who are very low income. They have a lot easier time having faith in Jesus. They have a lot easier time relying on the blessings of Jesus. They have a lot easier time of receiving and tasting and experiencing the goodness that Jesus has for each one of us. And the rich really struggle with that because they know that they can buy a bigger blessing than Jesus can give. So as we go throughout our day, we really do need to rely on the blessings of Jesus Christ. We need to rely on the grace of Jesus Christ. We don't need to put our financial standards and our financial needs and our consumption in front of that. That if you are rich, you have to really watch this. Because whenever there's a problem, you can go to God, or you can go to your finances. Now, sometimes going to God includes going to your finances, but if you just go to your finances first, you can bypass God altogether. So if you're rich, you really have to watch this. And you really have to watch about the oppressive nature that we give off as being rich. We come off as insensitive. We come off as everybody can be where we are. We come off as people who just want to consume what other people have. And we have no empathy towards anybody else outside of our individual bubble. And the last thing we just need to think about is being generous. Christians are generous people. We give. We give more than we probably have or have. And other Christians, we should not take advantage of this. Like, we should not oppress. We should not receive. We should not build up for each other, but we should give. If someone's in need, we give. If someone's hurting, we give. If someone's put themselves in a bad situation and we have the ability to go beside them and give and help them out of it, we should do that. Doesn't matter what decision they made. It's our decision to be generous. It's our calling to be generous. So I pray as we go throughout the day, we view people not as stepping stones. We don't view them as you have something that I want, but we view them as an opportunity to be generous, that we value them above ourselves, that we're not looking to our own interests, but to the interests of that they have. Now, within the church, if we all look to the interests of others, or each other, the person sitting to our right and left, the person we worship with to our right and left, then that will be a very healthy and generous culture. But we do not want to be consumed with a consumer mentality. That will deplete the generosity so fast. And we do not want that. So let me pray over the scripture, over our days as we go throughout our day. Anthony, it's good to see you. I hope all is well up in Cincinnati. Hope you're doing well. But I'm going to pray for everybody here and everybody who will listen to this in the future, that we really rely on God. We really rely on the graces that God has. We don't rely on ourselves and what we can do, but we really, truly rely and get through the day based on Jesus Christ. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much I really do thank you for the gift of grace in Jesus Christ. That we need to rely and live our life in the Spirit through grace, through faith, in order to get through the day. That is what gives us energy. That's what gives us motivation, because we need to go closer and closer to the will that you have for this world. God, I pray that we throw off the burdens of this world. We throw off being this wealthy mentality. I throw off being consumers and oppressors. But we rely heavily on you, and we give off generosity in response. God, you are good, and I want to thank you so much for Jesus. I'm asking this all in your son's name. Amen. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys next week.